DEF CON is the world's leading hacking conference, about to have its 31st event in Las Vegas. For the second year in a row, Quantum Village will be helping attendees engage with using quantum technologies and understanding the cybersecurity impacts they'll have. Find out how you can join our community in this episode of the Post-Quantum World. I'm your host, Konstantinos Karagiannis. I lead quantum computing services at Protiviti, where we're helping companies prepare for the benefits and threats of this exploding field. I hope you'll join each episode as we explore the technology and business impacts of this post-quantum era. Our guests today are the dynamic duo behind DEF CON's Quantum Village, Mark Carney and Victoria Kumaran. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
So we've all known each other for a little bit now. We talk behind the scenes, but now we'll pretend like we're all official for the purposes of a podcast. And we had Mark on, of course, listeners might know. He was talking about a paper he wrote on the quantum kill chain a while back. But this episode's a little different. This episode, we're going to be talking about something that's coming in a few weeks from when you're listening to this, if you're assuming you're downloading it when it first appears. And that is, of course, the DEF CON Hacking Conference, and more importantly, for our purposes, the Quantum Village, which is being held there. So before we dig into all that, if you just want to give a real quick intro for each of you.
So my name is Mark Carney. Not the governor of the Bank of England formerly, but I was actually formerly a violinist back in the day, and also a hacker. So I've kind of come into technology through the cybersecurity route, and currently working on Quantum Village, and also doing innovation and research at a global bank.
Okay, and I just have to say, for everyone who associates hacking with techno music only, here you go. He was a violinist. And Victoria.
Hi, I'm Victoria. My background's in art and design. I went to St. Martin's. I've been working in a wide range of startups, everything from tech to tonic water. Really focusing around design, building strong communities. We've been working on Quantum Village, I think almost 2 or 3 years now, and we're just getting ready for our second iteration this August.
Yeah, that's right. There was a Quantum Village last year at DEF CON, and some listeners might have gone, maybe, it's possible. But some people might have never been to DEF CON in general. I mean, I've been going there since, I think, 1999 was my first one, the Alexis Park Hotel. It was a really surreal experience. It was kind of tiny. The rooms were super packed. And now that they're in big rooms, they're super packed. So it makes no difference, actually. So I don't know if you two want to tag team and give our listeners a little sense of what DEF CON in general is like before we dig into the Quantum Village.
So DEF CON is kind of like a no-holds-barred, kind of gloves-off approach to the real deal of technology. Like, if you want to find out what's really going on with a particular tech, then DEF CON is a really good place to find people who can really tell you the true story behind something. And what we wanted to do with Quantum Village was take that approach, but with quantum technologies. So not just accepting that, oh, this is going to break it, but looking under the hood and going, okay, how's it going to break it? What are the resources required? What are the challenges that we have to overcome? And then also helping people like lift their quantum literacy, because at the moment, not a lot of people in the whole world, by percentage, not a huge amount of people know a whole lot about quantum technologies. And some of the brightest and most innovative people are at DEF CON. And so the aim we had was to try and bring that mindset and quantum technology together to see kind of what happens. And the answer is that it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of interest.
Yeah, I think DEF CON is one of those quite unique spaces, and Konstantinos, you know far much more. You've been around a lot longer than us, but you can attest that it's that kind of no marketing, gloves off approach, which is actually super refreshing, for a lot of people that, you have the sort of commercial conferences, the heavily marketed, polished things where, you're kind of bamboozled with lots of things that don't really make much sense. Or you've got academic conferences, and DEF CON is a very niche but nice and fairly welcoming space that actually merges technology and a lot of creativity, and I think has a lot of time for creativity, and a lot of smart people go. And I know there is a sort of scary side or image which makes it a bit more fun, I guess. But it's a really special place, and I think it allows us to kind of meet everyone from someone who's deeply technical, who might have a PhD, but they very well might likely not. But they have a really, really deep interest and curiosity. And I think that's usually the crucial bit. And the key thing for Quantum Village is to kind of tap into that and kind of build a bridge a little bit. Because I think there are a lot of academics we come across, a lot of people in policy and government who really actually want to understand what's going on in the more hacker mindset. There's certainly examples in the world already that are doing that. So we're kind of echoing some of that as well.
Yeah. So DEF CON was always viewed as kind of like a big party too, right? Like it was always, you had Black Hat all stuffy with its like vendor booth. And then when that's over, you go to DEF CON, everyone's hanging out by the pool. And then there's but then there's these deep tracks with talks that everyone is just dying to see. 0 days, things that would draw headlines. You would usually get a lot of press after each DEF CON as major vulnerabilities revealed, tools. And it changed the world little by little every year, and it would grow. And as it grew, we started having the need for these, what we call villages, right? So there would be these little like side channels, so these little like side tracks. And as they grew, Wi-Fi was a good example, the wireless idea. As that started becoming popular, it's like, let's just have a whole bunch of talks about that. And a whole bunch of talks about AI and a whole bunch of talks about different topics. And now it's exciting that for 2 years now we'll have a Quantum Village, right? So a place where we could just focus on that kind of technology. It's not actually a little village off by itself with like a campfire or anything. It is just a few rooms inside the venue. So let's talk a little bit about, is there going to be any kind of theme or anything around Quantum Village this year? Is there anything you're pushing for?
I think our big idea this year was to really build on interactivity. So you mentioned the villages. One of the most popular villages is the lock-picking village, where you sit down and someone's going to give you a lock and lock picks and go, here's how to pick a lock. And some people are horrified by this idea, but actually by the end of it, what people have at the end is a better impression of what a secure lock looks like. They'll go, oh, I'm going to spend the extra $50 on an Assa Abloy lock because this other one is rubbish. I'm going to throw it out. I'm going to rely on this, because you kind of have a better sense as to why they're better. And what we wanted to do is kind of build more interactivity into what we're doing. So we're pushing for more workshops. We're pushing for more ideas with talks with code, for example, so that we can present something where people attend and they sit down, they learn something, and they can also do it as well. And that's our big push this year. So it sounds like a little bit of a cop-out, interactivity. But realistically, we're just trying to get people to really engage with this technology. So not go, quantum is somewhere, but to go, quantum's here. It's on my laptop, and I'm able to do something with it.
And to that end, I know last year you even had a little device to show people how simple it could be to understand the principles of quantum, right? If you just want to talk about that for a sec, because I think that captures kind of that hacker feel fully.
Yeah, this was me getting a little bored, and so I decided, what could I put a quantum simulator onto? And I've always got this kind of thing of, so my background is in embedded security, and I got this thing of, can I put something on an embedded chip? So I decided to write a quantum simulator that fits onto a Raspberry Pi Pico, which is a little dual-core ARM-based processor. And I wrote it for 4 or 5 qubits. 4 qubits is the one that I released through Quantum Village. And people loved it. Having that little simulator with little screen, little buttons that you could just interact with, and the world's worst UI imaginable. But actually, people were a little bit captivated, because it's kind of different when it's on your laptop and it's IBM and it's these big names and cloud and, oh, wow. But then it's like a little small thing in your hand, and it's kind of a bit more intimate to you because you're the only one interacting with it. So it was really kind of crazy to me to think that something I'd done for fun, like of a weekend or for a few weekends in the run-up, would become like a little bit of a staple that actually we ended up giving a load of them away as prizes for the Quantum Capture the Flag competition, which we held. And that was really nice to see that people went, I kind of get it now, because when you have an operating system with cloud and network connectivity, there's a lot of moving parts. When you could look at the source code for an embedded simulator, you can see very quickly, like, oh, here's what you're doing. Here's how you take a circuit and then turn that into a distribution or even a measurement set.
Yeah, I think you handed one to like someone on a plane, right? And had them start messing with it. And
well, we were on the plane to DEF CON, and of course everyone else is on the plane to DEF CON.
It was a good test audience.
Yeah, sure. It's a captive audience, yeah.
I was sat next to a lovely student from, I think, University of Maryland, and I just handed it to him because he was asking me loads of questions, and I was like, I've got code to write. Can I give you this?
What was really awesome, though, about that, I think, was that his first reaction was like, oh, I'm not going to get the quantum stuff. And I think that's the nice thing that we discovered last year a little bit, is that quantum kind of has this quite, I don't know, hocus pocus thing around it. I mean, there's all kinds of things in the world that get called quantum, but, you know, you've got this physics layer, and it's quite intimidating. But these are the sorts of people, I think, once you kind of interact with them and you give them something hands-on, it's actually so remarkable how quickly they pick it up. And we kind of saw this in our Quantum Capture the Flag last year as well, with how people placed and their experience or their inexperience, which was really surprising and sort of validated what we were doing as well.
Yeah,
so,
of the top... Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, in a true capture the flag, you're breaking into machines and capturing a flag. You know, there's a text file or something. Yeah. Like so we're going to have to talk in a moment about what quantum capture the flag looked like last year and what it's going to look like this year for sure. So
people are like, capture the flag versus the other one.
Yeah,
I think the idea now is to kind of just get people dipping their toe, getting them comfortable. And I think this year Mark's got a few good ideas, right?
So to be clear, we're not breaking into quantum computers. We're not using quantum computers to break into other computers. So that's not what capture the flag is in this context.
Not quite there.
Yeah. So before we dig into capture the flag, I was wondering maybe Victoria, if you want to explain this one. So there's a lot of education here, a lot of education aspects. The quantum font. Did you want to maybe intro a little bit the impact that's already having and what it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's based on the kind of computer model, so it's quantum computer model. We launched it for, I guess, World Quantum Computing Day. Mm-hmm. And ultimately it's something that, you know, instead of using LaTeX or some, you know, programs like that you need to, and that's fine if you're immersed in the academic world, and, you know, kudos to whoever's using that. But for a lot of other people, it's actually quite hard to then do the notation. And it was just something where we are applying, I guess, our more sort of holistic skill set and thought, you know, let's just make a font. And actually you can just download this and then have this in Word and kind of just type it out. And that we've actually had very good feedback. And I think that's part of the sort of ethos we're trying to foster and demonstrate at Quantum Village. And we're very open to collaborating with people. It's open source. People can give us edits. We're really open about it. And it's just really about showing what is possible, you know, beyond building the quantum computers themselves. And of course, we also get those fantastic folks in to show us what's going on as well.
And are tech publishers interested in this already, the font, right?
I believe there's someone. There is one publisher who actually messaged me via a friend, and they were like, we love this because we've got like 20 editors who are all having to deal with like quantum now because it's growing, and they want to do more materials, but their editors are really struggling to learn LaTeX because they're editors. They're not, you know, academics who are used to that kind of rigmarole. So they love the idea, and the fact that you can have it in a Word doc or an email or whatever because it's just a true type font was really appealing, and we've had some amazing feedback from that. So we're really keen to build on it and see if we can make better versions and help with edits.
Yeah, our listeners should download and take a look. It's basically quantum wingdings, you know, and you know, it's like,
I like it.
If you miss those old days of before emojis, right? What do we have? We're like wingdings, awesome. So now you got
that next.
Yeah, you got quantum, and we have quantum emojis eventually. You know? Yeah. But I wanted to highlight it too because it just shows that Quantum Village isn't something that lasts for 3 days. It's kind of like It's sort of an ongoing community sort of feeling, and putting out things that help people learn. And of course, while you're there, you can take advantage of the camaraderie and everything that's going on. So let's dig into that. Back to, I guess, capture the flag. So what did that look like last year? What was happening? Is it sort of like, is there hacking? Not really. Is it quantum jeopardy? Maybe not exactly that. So how would you classify capture the flag?
I don't know. I think it was kind of like the world's most challenging pub quiz. That might not translate to American audiences necessarily, but we have lots of bar quizzes, pub quizzes in the UK, and it was more trying to have a fun approach to solving problems. So actually, you could, over 5 challenges, build a Grover search iteratively. And the idea is that at each stage, once you complete it, there's a validator server which will then give you flags and give you points therein. So the idea was that you could still get flags by making the correct choices for quantum circuits, or by performing the correct actions with well-known libraries such as Qiskit or Ticket, or I think there were some circ challenges as well. And the idea was to build up this confidence and interactivity. So although you weren't actually hacking a quantum computer, you were getting a sense for how quantum technology might work and how you might be able to understand better questions around, because last year we had just seen NIST begin its standardization releases. So it was good to sort of build a body of knowledge around Grover Search and Shor's algorithm, for example, trying to show people, okay, here's what they kind of look like. We also had fun things like a picture round. And the picture round was great because we just messed with people. So we had one where it was Alexei Kitiev, but to get the points, you had to put the name in Cyrillic because he's Russian, right? So I had one person beating down on my near my laptop. I said, "This is the answer. Why is it not right?" And I'm just like, "Where's he from?" Whatever. And he was having, it was a lot of fun. People were really sort of engaging with it. We had submissions for the full 48 hours we ran. Like at any time of day, there was someone sitting away, hacking away at the challenges. From that, I can tell you that the most number of wrong submissions take place at 1 a.m. So that's the worst time to do quantum information science and tech. In case anyone's wondering, for the academic output.
There you go. They'll just spend that time at the bar, I suppose, like people tend to do at DEF CON. There's less of that. So how do you envision it being a little different this year than last year, the capture the flag?
I think we want to capture more of what's actually going on in the tech. So what we're trying to do is build more realistic scenarios around actual quantum computers. Because a lot of the quantum computer technology stack is classical. So the cloud system, the queuing systems, the compilers and optimizers, the measurement equipment, they're all running Windows or Linux predominantly. And actually, we do know how to hack a lot of that. And we do know how to, sort of take particular issues and then iterate them forward into challenges. So trying to build technology stacks that then mimic real quantum computers, albeit without the actual quantum piece in the middle, the very cold, very empty box where the qubits live. So without that, we're trying to build a more realistic model so that we can show people, okay, here's the kind of things that quantum computers should take into account. Because ultimately, the more we get engagement from large companies, small companies with quantum tech, the more their regulations are going to follow them. And those things usually call for things like a pen test. So do you have a pen test for your quantum computer? And at the moment, that's a very strange question. But I promise you, in a couple of years, that'll be a very standard question.
Yeah, absolutely. And think of the issues with cloud, and you're going through someone's cloud to get to the machine. Are there some kind of injection attacks? Can you see what other people are doing? There are still all those other layers to the infrastructure to think of.
Precisely.
Absolutely. So Victoria, when you walk into Quantum Village, if you've never been before, what do you see? What typically is going on?
I mean, our dream is always to have a quantum computer or some sort of kit there to give people a real feel that's not sort of in a museum or sort of, some prestigious city centre. But really, our focus this year is to get more interactive. I think following on with the CTF this year, definitely including more bits about quantum networking and communication. I think that's something that we will be covering more. We've had interest of people participating, companies that are starting to do that, which is really exciting. Last year, it was much more focused on computing. We did have some laser splitters and things. But this year, I think we're hoping to also have access to computers as well. As we did last year, we had access to Oxford Quantum Circuits UC, which was really incredible and very generous of them. So this year, we're very much looking to build upon that, expand that, get people more comfortable. We're also, as part of being more interactive, want to do things around music, so having an audio-visual piece. And I think that way also helps people understand what's going on and somehow learning in a different way. I think one of the great things about Quantum Village and the setting of DEF CON is it's full of people that learn in a very different way to the very typical academic sense. So having that idea of things to play around with, things to break. We have had a few companies that have reached out who have said that they are considering it. So stay tuned. I guess you'll have to find out in August.
Yeah. So instead of walking in, you don't want people it's not just going to be like the room where the talks are and the room where the competition is. You're hoping to have something more interactive too that people could touch and, and experiment
Absolutely.
with.
And building out with the quantum simulator, I think, really last year Mark did a great job with getting the parts. I think it's always just getting the right parts, but we've kind of built it in a way that, even people who cannot attend globally, we've done it in a way that for sort of $20, $30, you can get this to students or people who are curious and sort of build things remotely. And I think that's where we're trying to sort of connect the dots as well. But really, I think also branching out on the audiovisual piece and also obviously doing the workshops, I think that's one thing that is incredibly valuable to the community. And we're trying to build that out, and get access to people who aren't necessarily in the academic labs, because that's already a kind of a finite group. When people talk about a sort of quantum talent shortage and things, it's more that if you've only got these very academic tracks and you're only looking at that, you're already closing off your potential. And I think there's some really smart people, if you upskill them now, if you get access to them now, the onboarding the next few years is going to be easier. And it's much more welcoming. And it's supposed to be fun. I think that's the key bit. You can do what you want. We'll have stickers, we'll have swag, we'll have things. If you want to draw a quantum toilet, you can do that. Or if you want to, build some, great, showcase your quantum internet thing that you've built, like do that as well. It's kind of a very welcoming space, and there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Yeah. Quantum toilet. I'm just going to let that one sit there.
We did one of our picture rounds last year. We did have the chandelier, the quantum chandelier, just the fridge component. Yeah, the fridge. And I think one of the submissions was Jeff Bezos's toilet.
Yeah.
I think it sort of stuck in my mind.
Well, they're sealed, so if we can't get any real hardware, we'll just put like a black box in the corner and write like blue fours on it or something with a marker. I'm like, look at that.
That both is and is not a quantum computer.
Yeah. So Mark built that thing last year, and I believe this year you're going to put something similar to a very different use. So I don't know if Mark wants to talk about that, which opens up a whole can of worms here.
Well, one of the things I've done with it is I've turned it into a quantum music thing. I'm building that out a little bit because my background as a violinist is creeping in, and I've already promised at least one professor to send him a quantum guitar pedal. So that's something that was sort of I'm actually actively sort of working on developing, and if people want to come and get involved, like our GitHub has lots of code in it, and also there's a lot of code that isn't quite public yet, just because we want to sort of release it in a way that is like working and sort of proof of concept, and at least sort of it makes a decent sound as opposed to just blaring some random noise. We want to sort of be able to tune these things and have a really good effect on what we're doing. So there's a lot of push for that kind of thing, as well as arranging a full performance with these devices. One of the ideas we have had is to add networking, because the Pi Picos now have a wireless version which now does Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. So I've got a prototype for some really cool sort of networking simulators that might let the badges talk to each other in a way that we can like have a performance where everyone's part of it because everyone's entangled, which kind of sounds really nice as an idea, you know, like sort of you are the sound, you are part of this performance. And it lets you play with these ideas in a way that hopefully will stimulate people to think about what's going on, because a knock-on effect is, well, if I'm part of this and I'm having an effect on this performance, what else could be happening if if my data goes to a quantum computer, or if I start writing quantum algorithms that then work on particular signals and that kind of thing. So we've got a sort of a real mixed bag of ideas. When it comes to things that we actually have planned, we also are looking for the ways of building out better senses for what is going to happen with the stages of technology. So there's a big questions of when quantum computer, but that's only part of the story. Like you've also got to consider, okay, when quantum sensing device. There's a lot of news recently about position and timing devices being used in various navies and whatnot, which is actually really important to understand that that's kind of the start. That's the thin end of a wedge in many ways for quantum sensing coming into our lives. There's amazing work at the University of Nottingham on like these little tiny NMR devices, and that could have all sorts of effects when you get to quantum level sensing. And then you've got the quantum internet as well, and quantum communications, and how's that going to work and change things? Will I ever have a QKD chip in my phone that communicates with the satellite? Like maybe it'll never happen. Maybe it's too hard, or maybe some whiz kid's going to come along. And I think the more we expose people to these ideas, and the more we get them to think either through workshops or through art and music and just being creative and having fun, I think different people engage in different ways, and we want to speak to that, to break out of the closed club. And so it becomes a more open platform for people to just learn and discover.
So you're going to have people potentially creating music together right there?
That's the hope.
Yep.
I mean, that's the hope.
That's awesome.
I don't know if it'll be good music, but...
Yeah, and I mean, to anyone who's been in a band, they know that it's very much like the Copenhagen interpretation. You might feel entangled for a while, but you do ultimately collapse. So yeah, that'll be pretty interesting to see.
It's going to be great fun, I think.
Yeah. And we're definitely this year, I think, touching more on the policy piece, the privacy piece. One thing I'm not sure we mentioned, but we don't tend to do any panels. I should never say never, but what we've been doing is actually sort of Oxford Union style debates. And part of that is to kind of just foster that healthy kind of discourse, a healthy discussion. And we've had really good results last year. We've got people signing up for this year. And I think that's something that will be really fun and interesting to watch, even if you can't attend. We'll have everything off on YouTube as soon as possible. But I think that also stops that sort of, I don't know, some panels tend to be a sort of love fest of colleagues. It doesn't always lead to diverse thinking. It just sort of ends up being a bit of an echo chamber. And I think that's what we're kind of trying to break and provide a space for people to propose other ideas as well and creatively.
Yeah, I want a few links from you guys to put in the show notes, just so folks can get a sense of what this all feels like before they decide to head out there, or at least participate remotely.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting. After I took part in the debate about post-quantum cryptography. And I took the position of a legacy CISO. So this is a guy in charge of security who doesn't care about quantum. Now, not a problem. Not going to be my thing. 10 years out. Okay, I don't care. And I was up against Dr. David Joseph, who is very much a PQC person. I mean, as am I. I actually do see the benefit. And we're now seeing the regulations coming forth. We're seeing new standards emerging. Mm-hmm. But I had to present the opposite argument. And afterwards, I got an email a few months later from when we released the video. The email was from a PhD student who was looking for people to talk about PQC, and he was struggling to find the opposing side of the argument. And he was very surprised to find that I'm actually pro PQC because he was so well convinced by my argument against PQC.
Classic debate club, right?
Yeah.
Someone's got to take one side,
Yeah.
someone's got to take the other. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But that's really healthy. And actually, I think, some people, won't have an immediate need to change things, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be aware. And you're always managing your own risks and your own risk profiles and attack surfaces and your own threat model. And so you just have to be aware of like what could be changing. FIPS is going to change and when and how that matters to you. Is it your problem? Or is it Microsoft's problem for providing you the Windows capability to do that? There's a lot of different moving parts in all of this. Cryptography has been hard for a very long time.
Mm.
And now we're needing to move into a more crypto-agile world where we can move things around that traditionally we haven't needed to. So there's a lot of different thinking we have to adopt, not just quantum thinking, but also just being agile in ways we've traditionally not had to. So I think there's a lot for people to learn from the various debates and discourses in the quantum tech and post-quantum cryptographic world.
We're trying to be more of that neutral space, I think, where we're not we don't have a kind of point of view or sort of telling people this is the way it has to be. I think so much is being formed now that it's more about creating a space where people can come and think about what could be and learn and find the views that they want to find, and challenge other people's views and have their own views challenged. Because I think a lot of us have ideas and actually want people to talk to tease out, because we have a lot of good ideas, but we also have a lot of bad ideas. And that's a lot of the same that you get in scientific discovery, is that kind of methodology. And I think it does work very well, but laced with a bit of fun, I think.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, it sounds like people are getting a sense of how interactive and different types of things they could do there. They're going to be able to participate, and I want to talk about that in a sec too before we run out of time. But so there'll be talks, right? The schedule isn't up yet, but there will also be a few opportunities to just sit down and absorb some really practical, intense information. Is there anything you could share yet of those, or is it too soon to reveal the time of recording?
We have some really interesting workshops coming up that we've arranged. One is on a deep dive into like the internals of post-quantum cryptography. We're also planning one with a dear friend of Quantum Village about some quantum-inspired
I wonder who that could be.
I couldn't possibly comment. I think his name was Konstantinos, actually.
That might be.
And we have some other talks and ideas lined up for example, on the quantum music side. Like we're also planning a workshop to go with that, so that we can actually lead from here's how you take sound, turn it into signals, and do quantum with it. And then straight into and here's a performance of what is possible with, a bleeding edge tech. So that's a flavor of the kind of things we're looking at. And as we get more confirmations, we'll start putting things up on the website.
We'll also be continuing on quantum life and looking really at those sort of secondary effects and creating a space, I think, where people can partake. And we're still very much open for people who may want to contribute, who are already doing things around how technology affects life in different technologies. I think we tend to find there's a lot of crossover and overlap, and I think at the same time having a space where people can discuss themes around privacy, identity, and talk about what the benefits could be or what should be is quite helpful.
Great. And what could people do then to participate? I mean, obviously they can go to DEF CON and get a badge and spend a lot of time in those rooms, which will eventually be in the schedule. But what else could they do if they wanted to get involved somehow?
I think the first thing that we're going to be keeping open until quite late in the day is a call for challenges. So the quantum capture the flag is something that we want to see what people are thinking about quantum tech and what interesting corners they've discovered. Last year, I set a challenge that had quite a few 100 points on it, a really big scorer, but it was a very gnarly challenge about writing an algorithm that did a very particular thing, and you had a number of lines restrictions, so you had to write it in open QASM and very meager resources. And the idea was to see, I was like, no one's going to solve this. This is just like one of those pinnacle things to just see if anyone gets close. And then 3 people solved it. And this is a little problem that had a couple of postdoc friends of mine scratch their head in giving an answer. And then 3 people, none of who had ever done quantum before, managed to solve it. And when you look at the tradition of DEF CON capture the flag competitions, there's always someone who just goes, right, this is mine. And we'd love to get actually the other view. Like if someone's noticed a really cool thing or has a really good idea for a challenge, we have a call for challenges that is open, and that's going to be kept open for as long as we can, because it's very easy to add the challenges, and we're going to have a hall of fame for people who have submitted. So that's one way that we'd like people to get involved.
Okay. And Victoria, do you have any other ideas of how people or companies can get involved?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty sort of around, like, in terms of on Twitter and Discord and things like that. We try to keep ourselves as available as possible. But certainly, I think in terms of corporate partners, there are a lot of quantum computing companies that we've not sort of interacted with. We've kind of had the benefit of being able to kind of track people down at other meetups and things. But any of them shouldn't really be too afraid to reach out. We're always looking for support, looking at ways to help support volunteers and students who want to continue on projects. We'd love to be able in a position to sort of help fund them and have those companies help support that, because there's a lot of good work, a lot of high quality stuff. We have started sort of publishing papers. We started helping other sort of government agencies and things, working with them as that kind of neutral space. And I think with that, we beyond Quantum Village this August, we are available and around, and we've got lots more ideas that can help facilitate that interactivity with other communities outside of that sort of very typical corporate and academic field, which is also important, but it's not the whole bigger picture. And I think our sort of community is slightly wider and very eager to kind of get more into quantum tech. Yeah.
And DEF CON is DEF CON 31. This one is August 10th to August 13th, 2023. But if you're listening to this in the future, chances are there's going to be another DEF CON with a Quantum Village edging up in that second week of August or so. So be on the lookout for that too. So any last thoughts before we say see you in Vegas?
No.
No. Yeah, well,
it's not that scary. I know for some people that they see, they hear hacking and it gets all quite scary. But I think the important thing is, like, if you don't start getting involved in doing it, I think other people will. So just I think come along. It's quite friendly.
I think the biggest thing I learned from last year is that whenever you're telling yourself you can't do something, or if you say the lie, which is I'm not smart enough, it's a lie. Like, you could absolutely do something. And Quantum Village is, I hope, a space that we've built where you could really just dip your toe, dip your foot, or just dive right in and discover what is a fascinating emerging field of technology that I think is actually, like, just amazing. The things you can say, we've made some of the coldest, emptiest vacuum chambers in the universe that we know of, and we're using that to compute, potentially build them to compute vast numbers and vast optimization problems. And that's genuinely exciting to think that in 5 or 10 years, that's going to be something that we're just plugging into an HPC system in a data center, and what the possibilities are. Like, there's a lot of excitement around this. There's a lot of potential issues as well, and we want people from all backgrounds to come and be part of that conversation. And we'll obviously help as much as we can to give you the tools to talk and think and just engage with this technology.
Great. That's really well said. So thank you two, Mark, Victoria. I can't wait to be hanging out with both of you in person again. It's going to be so much fun. And to anyone else who wants to come brave the 116-degree temperatures outside, come on down.
30,000 hackers.
Yeah. The AC does work in these places, though, so you'll be very comfortable.
Good in the desert.
It's very good. Now it's time for Coherence, the Quantum Executive Summary, where I take a moment to highlight some of the business impacts we discussed today, in case things got too nerdy at times. Let's recap. Mark and Victoria are about to host the second Quantum Village at the 31st DEF CON Hacking Conference. DEF CON has always been known for letting attendees get a deep look under the hood of technology, mostly through talks covering all sorts of exploits. And let's face it, it's sort of a big hacker party too. As themed subgroups or villages started forming as part of the show, specific technologies started having their own communities. Past examples included villages where you could learn lockpicking or hacking IoT devices. Now Quantum has its hands-on home at DEF CON in the Quantum Village. This year's unofficial theme is interactivity. Mark already built a 4-qubit simulator device people could interact with last year. Expect to see that device integrated into something new to play with, something musical, this year. And there's nothing more interactive than a capture the flag. This year's contest should have more expanded concepts in the challenges, including quantum networking and communication. Along with the hands-on activities, technical talks will of course be given in the village. One of them, I'm certain, will be about quantum-inspired approaches, because I'll be the one giving it. It's not too late to join us in Vegas if you hear this as it first posts. DEF CON 31 is August 10 to 13th, 2023. And if you're listening in the future, we'll see you at DEF CON 32 and on. That does it for this episode. Thanks to Mark Carney and Victoria Kumaran for joining us to discuss DEF CON's Quantum Village. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to Protiviti's The Post-Quantum World, and maybe leave a review to help others find us. Be sure to follow me on all socials at Constant Hacker, that's Constant with a K, Hacker. You'll find links there to what we're doing in quantum computing services at Protiviti. You can also DM me questions or suggestions for what you'd like to hear on the show. For more information on our quantum services, check out Protiviti.com or follow Protiviti Tech on Twitter and LinkedIn. Until next time, be kind and stay quantum curious.